This is Ham Radio Perspectives. I'm Quinn, K8QS, and before I let Tom introduce himself, I just want to say I had nothing to do with this video.
I'm Tom, WA9TDD, and this is my junk box special, high frequency vacation vertical. And the way this all came about is I went out and played QRP in my soybean field during a field day. And I had a cobbled up together antenna that worked pretty well for 20 meters CW. And I got to thinking I was having so much fun during field day that I thought I would do more outside activity QRP, something like Parks on the Air or Worldwide Flora and Fauna, which is similar to Parks on the Air. But I needed an antenna that was a little bit more portable than the rig I had. So
yeah, and also the big thing there was, Tom, you didn't want to be out in 6 inches of mud by the soybean field there anymore.
No, we just beat the rain on that one by probably about 10 minutes before I pulled the plug and scrambled and put everything away. But
all right, so you're on. You made this junk box special for $40 or whatever. Tell us what's going on here.
Okay. So I reviewed what's available as far as compact portable antennas go, and I looked at the chameleons, and we had tested a couple of the radiality versions, and I needed something that was telescopic, but would extend to cover the 20-meter band. So I went on to one of my favorite, how shall we say, import sites, and found this 18.4 foot whip telescopic antenna for ham radio users. And I looked at the price, $17. You know, how can I go wrong? So I ordered it and waited like 3 weeks for it to ship from China. And actually, it's a pretty sturdy piece of equipment. It's about 5/8 of an inch in diameter at the lowest section. And it does extend all the way out to 18 plus feet, which is just enough for 20 meters being fully extended. So,
okay, Tom, I will put a link to this in down below because I don't know how I got back on and found this because this is the one you bought, I think, apparently. But I'll put a link down there. And but I want to ask you first of all, is this thing stainless steel or what's it made of?
It appears to be stainless steel. You remember the old time car radios antennas, Quinn?
Yeah.
This is built exactly the same. There's very good tension between sections on it. I was kind of amazed. It's not real floppy, and it's made out of stainless steel, and it's really sturdy. I was quite amazed for the price of it, that how good it really was. So.
Okay, and did you have any concern at all about electrical conductivity attaching or soldering or whatever to the stainless steel?
No, I didn't. What I did is well,
we'll get to that.
Okay, we'll get to that. Go to the next slide. And this is a shot of it fully extended.
There it is in all of its Freudian
glory.
There it
is, all of my glory, all of its glory. This is in the fully extended position. I couldn't get all of it in the vertical height of the camera, but it gives you an idea of what it looks like when it's stuck up there. And it's actually pretty darn sturdy, I'd say. I haven't had it out in a 20-mile-an-hour winds. This is a shot of it collapsed down to the ground stake. So.
Okay, so let me understand this. So you've got this collapsible section, and I assume what you're going to do here is tune it for different bands and then put some kind of mark along the telescoping portion so you can quickly go to that spot.
Actually, very close, Quinn. This extends down to about 35 inches. And what I did as I fully extended it and hooked it up to my antenna analyzer, and then decreased the length of it versus the band. And I marked those down. I used a tape measure. And I would get it, set the antenna analyzer, like 10 meters, 12 meters, 50 meters, 17 meters, so on, 20 meters. And I would slowly decrease the length of the antenna and watch where the standing wave ended up on my antenna analyzer. At that point, when I got it pretty darn close to where I wanted it, then I would measure the length of the telescoping section and write that down. And I did that for all the bands.
Okay, so you're looking at quarter wave here, right?
I'm looking at quarter wave, yes, indeed.
Okay.
So rather than trying to make a mark on it and have it, stay, I figured I'd just carry a tape measure with me and get it as close as I could. And I'll show you how I tweak that a bit. This is the ground stake. It's a piece of square stainless steel tubing that I had. I sharpened one end so that I could push it into the ground. The threaded rod coming out at right angles, those are T-handle. That's to help me push it into the ground and then pull it back out once I'm getting ready to go home. The antenna and the SO239 and that other stud on the right is just a piece of regular hardware store angle iron that I drilled and fitted with a stud for the antenna. There's two studs actually for the antenna, and I'll show you that on another picture. Or I can show you on this picture right here. There's the ground stake. There's the T-handle. Up at the far right is the connection point for the antenna, the coax, the radials, and the travel position of the antenna is mounted on a stud so that it lays parallel to the ground stake. And I have a spool.
Okay, hold on there, Tom. You lost me on that one.
Okay.
The antenna.
I've got the ground stake. Okay, the antenna now is in its travel position.
Oh, okay. I see. It's bent together.
Right. I have a stud on that L bracket to reverse the position of the antenna so that it lays parallel to the ground stake. So it makes it a handy device to carry. Overall, it's about 37 inches.
Okay, and then what point above the earth does the antenna start? At 30 inches or so?
The antenna starts about 16 inches above the earth.
Okay.
The radials I have attached, they come out and are attached to the ground about 8 inches above the earth so that the radials are not in contact with the ground. And I am only running two radials. One's cut for 20 meters. The other one is cut for 10 meters. And it works out fabulously. As I check this out on my antenna analyzer, my standing wave was between 1.4 and 1.8, which I consider is acceptable for a portable antenna. The whole rig, without that little SWR meter, weighs 1 pound, 2 ounces. It's very light. So it's only about just about a half a kilogram. I had this little SWR power meter. I figured, what the heck? That weighed 5 ounces. So I attached that to the ground stake. So now I have a complete system. I've got an antenna that I can tune by measuring the length. I have radials. I have a ground stake. And I have a way of tweaking the length of the antenna on any band using that little standing wave bridge.
All right. So we just did a video, Tom, on vertical heights above ground.
Right.
And I'll put a link down below to that. I could summarize part of it just real quickly. It makes a big difference how close your vertical is to the ground. And the closer you get to the ground, or especially on the ground, you have to have a lot of radials. When you start to get it up in the air, you don't need as many radials. And so is that why you think this thing is working well? Because
I think it's working well. After I put it together, I took my little 5-watt QRP radio out there. I measured 4 watts output at the meter, and I worked 4 stations: Kenosha, Wisconsin, Manassas, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and let's see. Yeah, and all my signal reports were either 549 or 559.
With low power.
And low power, it was 20 meters. About 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the band was going dead.
Okay.
So I consider it a success for a little QRP lightweight antenna.
I'm impressed. Let me go at one other thing. You've got the 2 radials. How do you keep them off the ground at the end?
I took 2 pieces of 1-inch PVC pipe, cut an angle on one end to make it a spike, and drilled a hole in the opposite end. And I just plunged those into the ground and attached the radials to it.
Okay.
The whole kit is very, very light.
All right. So we see what you're doing here. It's kind of like a ground plane with minimal radials above ground, right?
Right.
And you figured out how to put this together so it's light. Now, one of the things is that you and I have been in this hobby so long that we have junk boxes that are overflowing.
Exactly.
In fact, we have multiple junk boxes. We have junk boxes on top of junk boxes. And so you went in there and found this stuff. But I also noticed, Tom, when I went on Amazon to find that link to the telescoping section, it suggested parts that people have been buying with that.
Right.
And so I thought it'd be fun to look at this, because this is basically what you were doing with the junk box stuff.
Correct. And my total expenditure for the junk box antenna was what I paid for the antenna, about $17. Now, as far as the adapter goes, what I did is I have a 3/8 by 24, whatever it is, 3/8 extension bolt, and I just got out a set of tapping dies, and I cut the threads to the metric equivalent of the antenna. So I just screwed that together.
Okay.
So I had the parts, I had the tools, and it was basically, I cobbled together what they're selling here for $40.
Yeah, very interesting. So take a look at this. Now, I know you made some kind of 3D version of this thing, and I made a plastic 3D version of this rather than writing it on a piece of paper or marking it on the side of my go box with magic marker, in case it rains. It's not going to get washed off or get soggy. But it's a frequency chart, and these are the dimensions in inches that I need to extend the telescopic part of the antenna to achieve a decent standing wave. And you can see I got between 1.4 to 1 and 1.8 to 1, which I consider pretty acceptable for the type of antenna this is. Right, and you're not using an antenna tuner, right?
Nope, I'm using the antenna to tune itself.
Yeah, and so for the rig, you're using your old Ten-Tech Rebel?
I'm using my old little Ten-Tech Rebel.
All right. This is amazing, Tom. When you told me you were going to do this, I thought, oh boy, I don't know, this is going to work or not. Of course, you never know when you start building your own antennas.
No.
Are they going to work?
And that's the fun. I mean, the few things you can actually still build and have effective in ham radio are antennas.
Right.
And if it didn't work, what about $17? But I had the parts. Go for it. How bad could I screw it? How bad could even I screw it up?
Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. And it's interesting that you got excited about that, because you're out in the yard there with field day, and that kind of got you thinking about making your own little portable antenna. Now, you call it a vacation antenna, but I think this is basically a portable antenna.
Right, exactly. But my thought was, when I go down to Florida, it's very late. It doesn't take a lot of room. Neither does my little Ten-Tech radio. Throw it in the car, take it on vacation, take it down to the beach. I can set this thing up in 6 minutes.
All right. So
And
here's the
be
deal.
ready to rock and roll.
What I want you to do when you get down to Florida for your season down there, maybe even when I'm down there visiting you, we could do it together. But I'd like to get this thing set up right at the water, at the
Right.
beach, where that salt water is.
Do a salty walt.
Yeah, we'll do a salty walt there and see how that thing works. So this is it, gang. This is Tom's thing. He's built it. You can put comments down below, like thumbs up, Tom. You did it for 14 bucks or whatever, 616, and it's working. So he's going to continue to fine tune it probably a little bit, but he's got something rocking and rolling here. Part of the maker community, we really like making stuff.
Yep.
And we would love you to let us know what you think. Put some comments down below and subscribe to the channel. We've got some other videos coming up that are the opposite of this. We're going to talk about some vertical antennas that are manufactured that have a huge price tag on them, and not necessarily to recommend them, but to review them and talk about how they work, because they have different systems according to how they work. That's one of the fun things about verticals, is it doesn't have to be just a traditional vertical. There are lots of things you can do, like this kind of ground plane system, to make it a little bit different. So thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Quinn, K8QS.
I'm Tom, W89TDD.
73, everybody.